This video will show cutting a drawing from Rhino on the laser cutter. First, I've started here with just a simple drawing. I want to vector cut this outer ring, that is to cut through the material, and these inner pieces I want to etch onto the surface or raster them into the surface. So to start with, what I need to do is separate the line types. So what I'm going to do is select my inner pieces. So I'll grab these inner ones. I'll go over here to the Properties tab and look down at the layer and notice that all on the default layer. I'm going to move those to layer 1. And now if I click off of them, all of those are red. Then I pull up my layer menu and look over here at default and layer 1. So I want to change the print width on these. So first, for my layer 1, I want to change the print width to something fairly large, like 0.3 millimeters. That'll give me a nice fat line. And I want to change the default for the print width for the default layer to hairline. This is what makes the difference between what is vectored and what is rastered. Anything in Rhino that's listed as a hairline will automatically vector cut if we tell it to vector cut. Anything above that is going to raster cut. So we're going to hit OK. So now we can see here everything in black is hairline, everything in red is 0.3 millimeters, which will be rastered. So now we're going to go to the File menu to Print, and here we make sure our laser is set as the destination printer. We're going to look at the Properties menu, and starting in the top corner here for General is the resolution. For images coming from Rhino or anything that's a vector type image, resolution's not going to have that great of effect on the overall design. 600 is a good working number. That's what I probably cut almost all of mine at. I've yet to really see a project where the difference between 600 and 1200 you could actually see the difference. I will drop it down in the 200 range if I'm just trying something out. I just want to see real quickly, does it look the right size, is it right location, that type of thing. I'll drop that down to make it a little quicker. The options here, I can have it autofocus. If I click on this, then the autofocus plunger will set the height of the laser above the work. If not, I need to go through and manually focus. Center engraving will let me indicate where the drawing is compared to the home position of the laser. And remember, we can set the home position of the laser to wherever we want it. If we don't check the center engraving piece here, it's going to treat the top left corner of the drawing as that home position. Otherwise, we can move where the home position is in relation to the drawing itself. Over on job type, if I click on raster, then only the red shapes would be cut because the black is a vector line, and since we're excluding vectors, those won't be affected. Transversely, if we click on vector, only the black line in this drawing would be cut. The reds would be ignored since they are a raster drawing. If we do combine, then it gives us the option to do both. The next piece down here is piece size, and this just happens to be whatever the last drawing was. I'm going to change this, since I know that circle's about 9 inches. I'm going to give myself a little room and call it 10 inches. And we'll see how that affects it when we go back to the print dialog. Since we're doing both raster and vectoring in this file, we need to do the settings for both. We get those settings for speed and power for the raster from our little chart. So here's our chart. We're going to do this on acrylic. We're doing it at 600 dpi. So this indicates 100% speed, 35% power. So we're going to come up here. We're going to set speed at 100. And we're going to set 35 for the power. Now, if you try this and it's too hot, it's either burning or scorching the material or going too deep into it, we can come here and drop this number down. If we're not getting it cut deep enough, we can move this up. On some materials, especially woods and papers, things that are flammable that tend to char or burn, I found that it's more effective to drop this number and cut it multiple times. So just run it over itself a couple of times. Each time it'll cut a little deeper, but it won't give you that charred look to it. The engraving direction is, where does the engraving start? This is going to move the head from left to right like a printer, and it's just going to start either at the top or the bottom, printing line by line when it's rastering. I always set this to bottom up. The position of our air assist, which is the little silver tube on the laser that blows compressed air to blow away the debris that's generated when the laser is cutting, it's on the bottom side of the laser head. So if we start at the bottom and move forward, that air blows the material away from the cut and it doesn't cut back over those. So I've always found the bottom up to be a much more effective way to run this. Image dithering, just like DPI on a vector image from things like Rhino or AutoCAD or stuff like that, you're not going to find a big difference between these. If you're bringing in grayscale images, things from clip art or things you've drawn in Illustrator or Photoshop, I would take time and try these in a couple of different settings, because they do give different effects. These are just different ways to interpret grayscale with the dots of the laser. In vector setting, these are our cut settings. We're going to go back to the chart. This piece is going to be cut in acrylic, and it's going to be 1/8 inch acrylic. So it says speed is 15, power is 100, and frequency is 5,000. Now we don't run our machine at 100% power because it's very hard on the tube. So I'm going to back this off to about 90, but I'm going to keep my speed a little lower. So it's going to cut a little slower. So I'm going to set the speed down to around 10. And I'm going to put my power up around 90. And the frequency, I'm going to pull all the way up to 5,000. Remember, the higher the frequency, the more heat you're going to generate into the material. So if you want to have something cut that you don't want to scorch, again, back off on the frequency. That's very common in things like paper. If I try this and it doesn't cut all the way through, then I would come by and drop the speed even more. If it's going through and kind of melting the material too much, then I would come back and try the speed a little higher. Vector sorting, since there's only one vector cut on here, it's not really going to matter. But if you have a lot of vector cuts within a drawing, make sure that you check this to yes and push optimize, or it can jump all over the board with you and increase the time of cutting significantly. Once we hit OK here, we go down and we have some other options. Now, notice I said this circle is 9 inches and this drawing size should be 10, but that doesn't seem to match here. So we need to look under View and Output Scales. And if we scroll down, we see right now it's set by default to scale to fit. Well, we don't want that. We want to say 1:1. So now it's going to print on the laser exactly the size of your drawing. If you change that, you'll either get a smaller or larger cut, but I find that it's better to do that scaling within Rhino and send it to the job 1:1. All right. And now when we hit print, we will see it process through. When we go to the laser control panel, you'll see that job ready to be cut.